Music matters. Go ahead, what were you saying?
I was talking about having a panic attack after my first headline show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man. I don't know. Like, in the past, I've had panic attacks before a show. I've had panic attacks on stage during performing. That was the worst. Because I was like freaking out afterwards too, and then I had to get calmed down by my parents and be like, "You did fine, bro. Like, relax." And the security was like, dude, like, you did good, man. Chill.
Chill out.
And then the show that
isn't that the worst when people like people who don't understand what it's like to have any kind of anxiety, they're just like, calm down. Like,
yeah.
Although honestly though, I'm a bit of a hypocrite, Mario, because I feel like I told you to do that earlier. To be fair, yeah. Mario was throwing out something and I was like, dude, just like chill out. I was like,
I actually appreciate it though, to some extent, especially when it comes from like a third party source like that. Like my parents, I feel like it's their responsibility to be like, you know, like, you did a good job, kid. Yeah. You know, like, it's all fine. But when it was like the security and he was like, you did good, like, you don't have anything to worry about. That was like, it was actually kind of a relief, because it was like, okay, this dude has kind of like no stakes in this, you know, like, he's just here, like, he didn't speak the whole time before that, and then he just kind of saw me, you know, having a moment, and he was just like, dude, you did good. So I do actually appreciate that when, because I think for me, with my anxiety, I've kind of tried to train myself as a way of dealing with it, to just teach myself that I'm being irrational. You know, like, that's kind of a thought that I've written down post panic attacks, is like, I was being irrational. And I think in the moments now too, I'm able to just be like, oh, maybe this is just one of those things where I'm being irrational right now, and my mind is just kind of taking over. But the one with the headline show where it was after was so strange, because I felt so good about it in the preparation. That was my first time like playing with the band. And
band was tight, dude.
I appreciate it, dude. Yeah. We went up.
I was so surprised to go and just and see Mikey, because I just know
Mikey.
Mikey, but I didn't know she was playing for you. So
hell yeah, because I know she does a lot of stuff locally, right? And she was in like the Devin Again music video.
Bro, she plays drums for like everybody in the world. Like it's kind of nuts. Like, I feel like
she's so sick.
Yeah, she's so good. There's like so many shows I've just gone to and be like, oh, like there's Mikey. Like, she plays hella shows. Anyway, continue. Sorry.
Yeah. So I felt so good about it right before I got on stage. Like, there was no nerves. That was my first time. I think I was just filled with adrenaline, and then I got on stage and I let all that adrenaline out, and I was like just so pumped out on stage. And then
big ass
we want to
truck.
wait for that.
What even is that?
It looks like a garbage truck. Almost kind of sounds like one.
Nah,
too.
Garbage truck came like an hour ago.
Oh, I don't know, man.
Are they sanding? What are they?
Sanding the streets of LA. Man.
LA has more, like, I swear to God, in the Bay Area, there were not this many noises. Like, there's so many noises in LA, bro. Sorry, you got distracted by me and then also the truck, but continue.
It's all good, bro. It just sounds like my head, man. But I feel like we did great on stage, and then afterward, I was still all pumped up. I, helped the team all clean up, clear out. I'm going.
Yeah.
And then we all decided, like, let's go get some food. And I started driving over to Hart House, this like vegan, the Kevin Hart little fast food restaurant. And I'm on the way over there, and I just crashed. It was like an adrenaline crash, after like too much, like you got pumped and pumped. And then my whole body just kind of went like limp. And I was driving with my girlfriend. I was like, you're gonna need to drive back home. And then we were going through the drive-through, and I like really started feeling it coming. Like, I could feel myself like shaking. And then I started eating. And I was there, with the band and some people from my team. And then I just started like I was just like right there in like a shell, and I actually appreciated them just continuing conversation like nothing was happening. They were still cracking jokes and whatever, and it helped me like laugh it off and stuff. But I still was like, in this shell, and then I felt like I needed to like throw up or something, but the inside of the restaurant was closed at that time. Like, we had to go through the drive-through and eat outside, so I wasn't gonna be able to go inside there. And then we're like, let's just drive in and out across the street. And then so I went there with my girlfriend, and I was thinking I was gonna go back, and finish eating with everybody. And then I like went to the restroom, and then I didn't even throw up, and I just kind of sat there like shaking. And it was one of the most bizarre experiences of my life, because it was like super late at that point, so everybody going into that bathroom in and out was just like tweaked out, or
they're like what's happening?
No, they didn't see me. I was just in the stall,
gotcha.
But like everybody was like, you know, people were going in there like singing and stuff,
okay,
and then somebody was like in the stall next to me just watching their phone on like full volume, and it was just like what is happening right now? And I was just in my notes app, just writing like every single thing down that I was feeling.
Bro, what the hell is this? Is it the recycling?
Yeah, that's trash. That's it.
Oh, weird. Okay. Sorry, continue.
Now you're good, bro.
Jesus Christ.
But yeah, I was just freaking out, and I have this long, just paragraphs and paragraphs in my notes app from that night, just writing down every single thing that was going into my head. And somebody is now singing this song by whatever artist, and it's a really bizarre thing to read, looking back on it now.
Does that help with your anxiety a lot? Just like, because no pun intended, I could see how that would help being present, just like being there and just writing down. Like, I think if I recall, I feel like I've done a similar thing, but I think like for me, that action of just writing down every thought in my head, it more so just like kind of creates a roadmap of like where the inconsistencies and the silly anxious parts are, and like what is maybe valid and what is not. But is that something you do a lot, just like write down everything that's happening in that moment?
I mean, I was taught to do that when I went to therapy as a kid, and that's kind of how I got into writing music in the first place, because my anxiety started from like a really, really young age. I was like 11 years old, and I'd gotten really sick, and nobody knew what was wrong with me, and I went to all these doctors because I just couldn't stop coughing. I just couldn't stop coughing all the time. And then they like realized it was like a habitual cough, it was just like a tick response, because I had a lot of ticks when I was younger. Okay. So my ticks used to be like I would like mess with my fingers, or I would like do something with my stomach. Almost like, you know, like an OCD response, but for me it was, you know, like young, dealing with my anxiety, and I had like little tics. And then when I got to middle school, my tic became, you know, that I would like cough. And so at that point, my parents were like, all right, like let's put this kid in therapy. And so I went to a therapist, and I credit her for a lot of the success that I've had as a musician, as a human being, because that was really the foundation of learning how to like deal with all of these, you know, like weird things that would happen just mentally with me. She gave me a notebook when I was young and was like, write your feelings down. And so I would write my feelings down. I'd turn them into, you know, journal entries, into poems, into songs, whatever. But on like a, you know, more immediate level, like you're asking about right now, if I found myself in a moment of, you know, just like immense panic, and I had the opportunity to be able to write or, you know, jot those things down on my phone or something, I do find that it helps for all the reasons that you said. It's
so interesting the way the anxiety can like manifest for different people, because it's like it is really like, it's not like a one size fits all thing. It's a different thing for everybody. Like it provokes different things. It makes you feel different. And it's interesting when you were talking about how you had the anxiety after the show. Yeah. Because in my head, I'm like, oh, I would assume it'd be before, or if you felt poorly about the show, maybe after. But it's so interesting and honestly so fucking shitty that like you had anxiety after having a show that you felt good about. Yeah. Like, do you think when you're spiraling that way, like on an anxious level, does it come from like a specific thought, or does it come from just anything? Is it like always related to a thing that happened, or no?
Not necessarily. I think there's instances where it is that. In an instance where it was like the show, I think there obviously was a lot of what was the word? Adrenaline that I had like built up, and maybe that shadowed a lot of the feelings that I sort of had deep down before the show, and I wasn't thinking about because I was just so amped up and doing so many things and making sure everything was good. And maybe it's just a result of me like not tackling those things beforehand, and then so afterward I just kind of felt the weight of everything that kind of got casted over. You know, it's kind of like if you try like just hiding something under, you know, I don't know what the metaphor is, you know, but it's like if you're just hiding something enough, eventually, you know, it's all it comes crashing out. Yeah, exactly.
Like doing something to cope. Yeah, that's so interesting, because that's like, it's just such a, yeah, it really is. Like, there's no rhyme or reason to it sometimes. Like, sometimes it doesn't make sense exactly why, like, you're having those emotions or where they're even coming from.
Yeah.
Do you remember, like, the first time you kind of, like, realized that this was a thing that you were dealing with? Like, you said you kind of found it at a young age, right?
Yeah. I think by the time I was in middle school, I for sure realized I had anxiety, and I started having tics as early as like third grade. You know, that my first one was like playing with my fingers, and like my family would call me like sticky fingers. And then I remember that was one in like middle school too, and people were like, "Is this kid throwing up gang signs? Like, what the hell is wrong with you?" You know. I remember that was something that was said to me, and I remember exactly where I was. I was in line to change out after PE, and I was like messing with my fingers, and somebody was like, "Why?
What are you doing?"
Yeah. So early on, I think for sure I wasn't exactly, you know, aware that was happening. I mean, I was so young. And maybe I just thought that it was normal to, you know, just kind of feel, you know, on the edge all the time. And then once I went to therapy and was able to sort of talk out some of those emotions, or kind of be talked to by somebody, obviously, who was older than me. I mean, obviously, an adult is one thing, but then also somebody who's like an expert in the field, whatever. Just able to sort of explain what was happening, and also how I could potentially deal with it as I got older. At that point, I was definitely aware of at least the anxiety aspect of stuff. So that was like 6th grade. When I got really sick, I missed school for like the first, I don't know, like 3-4 months of the year.
Damn.
Yeah, because it just, the cough never stopped.
Yeah.
And so I had like a teacher come to my house and like give me my work, and she'd be with me for like an hour, and I basically was like homeschooled, but not, you know, because I was still doing the work that was at the school, but I was like away from everybody.
Dude, that had to be such a confusing thing as a kid, let alone an adult. Because it's interesting, right? Because like the fear there is almost different. Like the fear, like when you're a kid, is just that you don't understand what's going on.
Yeah.
But it's almost like the fear when you're an adult, I think, is almost like at a certain point. And maybe I'm projecting here, but I think like admitting you have a problem kind of makes it real.
Yeah.
I think like it's really easy to kind of what you were saying, like suppress everything and just act as if it doesn't exist to a certain point, and then it gets just these boiling points where you can no longer do that. And it's also just like, I think the one thing I think it's really cool about what you do is just like how open you are about that struggle, because I think it's very stigmatized for like young men especially to like have to deal with things like depression, anxiety in an open environment, you know. I think it's weird. I feel like it's becoming more and more accepted and more understood, and I think a lot of it just comes with like the science being better and better. But I also think like, dude, there are just tendencies that I think we will always have as young men who grew up with fathers in like a different generation, you know, or just like men in like a different generation that just have a different view on things and stuff that like we probably won't ever be able to shake. It's hard, you know. So I guess it's just like, it just takes time and generations and people beginning to realize that like things like therapy and things like anxiety medication aren't just like they're not a crutch, you know.
Yeah, I'm super lucky to have parents who are young enough to be accepting of things like that, and accepting of the science, and accepting of things like therapy. Because like I said, I mean, my mom and my dad, they were like, you know, 19 years old when they had me. So they're, I mean, even to this day, they're only like 40. But when I was, you know, 10 years old, you know, going through all these emotions and stuff, they're like not even 30 yet.
Yeah.
So like they were still like really in their youth. Obviously, I mean, that had to be difficult for them to navigate, because I mean, I think about it, I'm like, I mean, when they were my age, I was already, you know, a couple years old. I mean, I couldn't imagine having a kid right now, let alone like navigating this kid who has all these like anxieties and stuff. But I mean, they did an incredible job, and I'm super grateful. I mean, I don't encourage, you know, go have a kid as a teen, but you know, it worked out for me because of that. And it's interesting. hearing from my mom, because she does run a preschool. I was telling you this
Yeah.
earlier, and she's seen these generations of parents come through for a while, and she has said that like this newer generation of parents that's like closer to our age, or even like she's like, I'm actually older than the parents coming to her school now.
Oh wow.
Yeah, she's like, for a long time she was like the director, and all these parents were older than her, and she's like, but the younger generation now is more like the dads especially. She's like, this is the first generation of dads that I've seen who like really have questions and want to be like
awesome.
present for their kids and stuff. So I do have hope for future generations, for because obviously the stigma is, like you said, it's being pushed back like by our generation and stuff, and I think hopefully by the time we have kids and stuff and they're our age, and their parents too, it won't be like how you're describing, where it's there's such a big pushback to men's mental health in general.
It's like it's like those problems and those misconceptions, they kind of become weaker and weaker and weaker as like the generations go on, and it's strange to put it this way, but it's almost like the people who are just kind of denying the facts are weeding out a little bit, but it is really interesting to think about. I think it's really, really weird to think how like we as just like human beings generationally become so different over time. And like think about this, right? Like your grandpa is a product of his dad, your dad's a product of your grandpa, you're a product of your dad, and it's just like a line and line and line and line, and it's weird, bro. Like I don't really think you can really shake sometimes a lot of the parenting that you're given, and that's a very difficult thing, because I think some people aren't. It sounds like you have great parents. I have really good parents, and I'm very, very, very lucky and grateful for that. But I think it's really, really difficult to like rise above that from the beginning, because if you're dealt that deck of cards, it's like where do you go? You know, like that is all you know. Yeah, and it's just like generational. I saw this TikTok this morning. I think it was this college professor, and he was talking about how like every single year the new class he gets feels like smarter and more socially aware, but simultaneously like more upset and like more fed up, because the things just keep getting harder and harder and harder, but people are just getting better and better and better at like dealing with our present circumstances, we're just like generally in the world. But I found it interesting how like things just change over time, regardless of whether or not like they're you're trying to change them. They just happen, It's super, super interesting. So talking a bit more about your music, that theme of kind of like, you dealing with things like depression and anxiety, that was kind of present from the get-go, right? Was that like an impetus to begin you writing music in the beginning? Because I know a lot of where you started was like on YouTube and doing things like that. Did that play any role, or did you start for another reason? Like, do you remember when you kind of were like, this is what I want to do, or even when you kind of just stumbled into it?
Yeah, like I was talking about earlier, I started writing as a means of just me trying to cope with or deal with whatever like big feelings and emotions I was having as a little kid or teenager, whatever that was.
Were those songs you were writing, or just writing down your thoughts?
So initially it was like journal entries, and then it did turn into songs eventually. And I remember I wrote my first song when I was in like middle school, but it wasn't really a song. It was more like a poem, like with a melody, because I had no concept of any musicality really. Like I didn't grow up playing guitar or playing an instrument or anything like that. I was just like jotting down lyrics, like songwriting essentially. And then once I got to high school, I started actually taking music a little bit more seriously. I was playing basketball prior. My whole life up until that point, like my main priorities, it was just like school and basketball. You know?
Mine too. For a long time.
I was playing like AAU ball, so it was like practices 3 times a week, and then it was like Monday, Wednesday, Friday I'm playing basketball. Tuesday, Thursday I have track practices. Saturday mornings I got track meets, and then immediately after I'm driving to whatever city for a basketball tournament, and Sunday it's basketball. So it was like there was no time for anything else. And then when I got to high school, I just remember I was playing summer ball, and at Camarillo High School, which is just sort of like the main school in Camarillo.
This was your freshman year of high school?
This is my freshman year of high school, going into freshman year. And I kind of like fell out of love with the game, and I'm not exactly sure what it was. I think there was a combination of things, but also at the time, like that summer, I started singing in church. And so I would sing on Wednesday nights was, we had like youth group, and like I would go on and, sing whatever songs for all the other middle schoolers while I was, and then I remember I had, my coach, I had a conversation with him prior, and I was like, hey, this is a commitment that I've made. I'm going to sing in church on Wednesdays. Yeah. And he was like, yeah, like, that's totally cool. And then I just remember he, like, threw it in my face one time and was like, maybe if you were at practice on Wednesday or something. I was like, dude, like, I told you. Like,
I'm at church, brother.
Like, we already had this conversation.
I'm a man of God. Leave me alone.
But so I just remember getting, like, pretty fed up with just kind of the dynamic of how things were going playing basketball, and we had like one game in particular where I just remember it was like a weekend, it was like a Saturday, we played a game. I got chewed out after the game, and I just remember going back to the car, and I was like so frustrated, and I'm sitting in the car, and my mom gets a phone call from like a random number, and she answers it, and it's the principal at this other high school called like Rancho Campana High School, who is it's a new school in Camarillo. It was only in its like second year at that point. And it was this like art school that where it's like where all the weird kids go, and there was like this weird stigma about it, that it's like, oh, like that's where all the weirdos go, with like colored hair or whatever, because that was where all like the performing arts, and they had like choir classes and like a big performing arts center that they put on like plays and stuff. And I just happened to like it was like a lottery system, and I just happened to like put my name in but before I had gone into school just to see what would happen. And then they called my mom and were like, hey, like there's like this last open spot, like would Jonathan want to go? And I had already gone through orientation at Camarillo High School and stuff, but I think I was just so fed up with like my situation just playing basketball that I was like, screw it, like I'm transferring. And so like in that moment, that really changed the trajectory of like how the rest of my life would go, honestly, because it was something as simple as just like a high school change, but the dynamics at the high schools were like so much different, to where now like every day I'm in choir classes, and I'm surrounded by other like-minded people that like enjoy writing songs, and that are just out in the quad playing their guitar and stuff, and so I think being around that really encouraged me to take a step forward with my music. And at that point I had pretty much just like quit basketball completely. Like at Rancho, they didn't have a basketball team or anything. You could still play at Camarillo High School was the thing, but I was like, nah, I'm done with that. I'm just gonna do music. And then I started posting on YouTube a few months into my freshman year of high school. It was like, obviously the school year started in September. By December, I had posted my first YouTube video. And that started because, I don't know if you remember the 10 Toes Challenge. Yes. Yeah, dude. So there.
All too vividly.
Yeah, dude. There's the 10 Toes Challenge, and there was the beat from like Bubba Got Beats on YouTube.
Damn, what was that? I'm trying to remember. I can't remember what the beat was. It was like.
It's like.
Oh yeah, it was a hella sad thing.
Yeah. Everybody was like in their car rapping all sad and stuff. Yeah. And so I posted some like lyrics that I wrote over that beat into the comment section, and people were like, oh, like this is so deep, man, like you should make a video out of this. And then my comment just started like going up and up in the comment section. I had, like it started getting like thousands of likes. I was like, man, like the people want to see this video. And so I made the video, and at that point I wasn't allowed to have like social media or anything. So I wasn't on like Instagram, I wasn't on Facebook or anything. And so I posted that video without like my parents knowing or anything, and I threw it up with this like clickbaity title. It was like 14-year-old kills 10 toes challenge. And I was responding to everybody that was like responding to my comment, like, hey, I made a video, go check it out. And then that video got like traction. It got like 10,000 views in like the first month. And so at that point I was like, okay, like this is a thing. And then it showed up in my dad's recommended videos on YouTube because he was watching like 10 Toes videos and stuff, and then he just sees me right there. And so I got grounded for it.
So he didn't know you'd made it?
So it was funny because he recorded it, but it was like almost like we just recorded it for ourselves. Like
he
was
didn't
like
post
recording me
it.
from his phone, but like he didn't know I had like posted it or anything.
Gotcha.
Yeah, exactly. So I just threw it up, and then I got grounded for it. But then it was whatever. Like my parents were like, okay, you can still keep doing this, but you can only do YouTube. You know, like I wasn't allowed to have Instagram or anything.
Were they super like against social media stuff?
Yeah, they were against social media.
It's kind of good
young.
parenting.
Yeah. Like they didn't want me to have it until I mean I don't know what age. At that point I was only 14.
Yeah,
you know?
I think that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So I didn't have any, and I think because of that too. I mean my priority, it shifted from just school and basketball to like, okay, school and music.
Yeah.
So I was like doing my school, and then immediately after I'd start writing or whatever, and I'm thinking about whatever YouTube video I could post and stuff, and I just started like grinding on YouTube, you know, like instead of just grinding basketball, how can I become, you know, the best player? I was like, how can I, you know, get views on YouTube? And I was just looking all of it up, you know, like how to blow up on YouTube, how to do this and that, how to do, yeah, so I just kept writing from there because of that comment and, you know, that video that did kind of well. And it wasn't until like 9 months later. So I'd gained like kind of a following on YouTube, like 3,000 subscribers or something in the first couple months. And then it like really just like plateaued. Like I remember that summer going into my sophomore year, there was like no movement in it at all. And I also just like wasn't posting. I had just turned 15 years old, and I remember I went through the summer, and before the summer, you know, like when you're a kid and you're like, this summer I'm gonna be so productive, man. Like I'm gonna do this and that and this and that, and then you get to the end of the summer and you're like, damn, I didn't do anything.
And shit.
Yeah. And so that was exactly, you know, what had happened, and it was like the week before, or I was gonna go back to school, and I remember just like beating myself up, and I'm like looking at my stats on YouTube, like, man, like I didn't do anything. Like I lost subscribers this summer, and so I, you know, went on a huge deep dive. How do you blow up on YouTube? How do you do this?
Yeah.
And it's like you got to do what's relevant. You gotta. So if like slime videos are popping off, you got to make slime videos. I'm like, how does this relate to me? You know, like how does this relate to music? So I'm like, okay, what's relevant in music? What people are searching for is whatever just came out, you know. And so I was like, I'm gonna make a remix to a song immediately after it releases. So that was my strategy. So I did that with like an NF song where he released an album, but then there already was an instrumental from like a previous single that had come out. So I posted my remix like the morning after the album came out. So people were searching for NF's album, and then my video was like coming up, and then I got like 10,000 views in the first week, and that was like my fastest growing video. I was like, okay, like I'm on the right track. And then X had just released 17 right before like the school year started, and I remember I wanted to do an Everybody Dies in Their Nightmares remix. I heard the album and I was like, man, this is
song.
Great. Yeah. But I couldn't find an instrumental soon enough, but there was already an instrumental for Jocelyn Flores. So it's like, all right, I'm gonna do a Jocelyn Flores remix. And so I wrote a verse and like a little chorus, and then I had my dad go out to the car and record me at like midnight, just rapping over this like X beat. And I posted it that morning. So it was literally, the album came out at 9 p.m. PST. I had my video posted by like 9 a.m. PST the following morning. So it was like 12 hours after the album came out, my video had posted. And I get, again, my little clickbaity titles was like 15-year-old's remix of Jocelyn Flores by XXXTentacion, which I guess technically it was not clickbait. It's just I threw my age in there because I knew it would, you know, capture people's attention. Like, oh, what's this 15-year-old gonna do? And then that video went like really, really viral, and got like 1 million views in the first like 2 weeks, because everybody was searching for. I mean, that X album just like blew up. And then my video just started being like the first thing recommended when somebody would finish listening to the album. And I think at that point too, a lot more people were still like really looking up music on YouTube. Like
I think a lot of people still do that. It's just
probably.
It's just like not our demographic.
Yeah, and so like. Everybody searching for the X album or searching for Jocelyn Flores, which ended up being like the biggest song on the record, and then, you know, this little 15-year-old comes up who's rapping over the beat, and the video honestly like sucks, you know. Like it is so bad, man. But I think because that moment happened, I realized, and then there was like an expectation of me after that, and I started like growing a following so quickly.
Yeah.
And then once that video hit 1 million views, I remember I got in the car back home from school, and my mom is like, I'm like, congratulations, like, don't expect it to happen again, you know, like, just trying to like keep me, you know, like, in reality, you know. She was like, like, we're like really proud of you, like, but don't like have this expectation that everything, you know. And I almost think I kind of like needed that fire too. And then
you're like, I bet.
Yeah. And my comment section, it was like more support than I had ever gotten, but also like more hate. And so there was like all these like really crazy feelings that I was having, especially as like 15 years old.
Yeah, that's young.
I already had anxiety prior to that, and then like I couldn't stop checking like the metrics. And I remember being at like dinner with my family and just like shaking under the table, you know, because I'm like, I'm being watched right now. Like I need to see, you know, what's happening. But then from that point, I remember I was like, this next video is going to be so much better than the last one. And I just kind of locked in, and like from that point forward, honestly, pretty much throughout high school, I kind of isolated myself from like everybody, and just like I would have my headphones in like all day and just like play whatever instrumental it was that I was gonna jump on, and I'm just like, all right, what's the next best lyric? What's the next best lyric? I'm like walking around all day, you know, like in a craze about this. And then my next video, I did like another X remix because I was like, that worked. So I did a Carry On remix from that same album, and then that video went crazier, like even faster. It was like 200,000 views in the first like day.
Damn.
And so I was like, okay, like, you know, this is a thing. And it felt like there was an expectation for me at that point. And I used this analogy where like people with glasses, like they're not like naturally smarter because they have glasses, but a lot of times people with glasses end up being smarter just because there's that like expectation of them, you know, that like you're
I've
an
never
intelligent
thought about
person.
that. Yeah.
And that was kind of what happened, I think, with me as an artist, where there became an expectation of me that like, all right, you're an artist now. That I was like, okay, I'm an artist. Like this is, you know. And so I just adapted to that, and from there I just didn't really look back, and I was really just focused on the YouTube game. Once I had that first video like blow up and got 1 million views, my parents were like, okay, like you could have an Instagram. Like, we made an Instagram for you, but like we still like are on the account, you know, so don't be stupid on it.
Yeah.
But like at that point, it's like, okay, like the pieces were put for me to, you know, be able to try and grow. Whatever trajectory, it was kind of up to me at that point. You know, it's like, all right, like people are watching me. I guess I got to deliver now. And so, yeah, I mean, throughout my sophomore, junior year, I was really like just posting YouTube videos like every single week, and I didn't have any music on Spotify.
So you felt more like a YouTuber at that point almost.
Yeah, I didn't have a concept of making like Spotify, like songs that were like ready for DSPs. Like I had no idea how to produce or how to make an arrangement. Like I said, like even those initial things that I was writing, like I had no musical background really besides like singing in church.
Yeah.
So I knew how to like sing and adjust my voice and write lyrics because that came kind of naturally. But in terms of like actually arranging a song and doing the production and then the mixing and mastering of it all, I had no idea where to even start with that.
Yeah.
So I really, like you said, I was like a YouTuber. And so I mean, I grew really fast on YouTube. Once I got to like my senior year of high school, so it was after like 2 like years of really just grinding on YouTube and growing a following there, I knew I wanted to start making like actual songs, you know. I mean, everything from there I still was just kind of like learning on my own. Like I didn't really have it. Even at the pace I was growing, it was weird. It was like the audience that I was attracting. It's
not a music industry audience.
Yeah.
At all, dude. That's actually so fascinating to think about, because it's like you were building an audience as a musician, not really like I mean, you were like doing music, but you weren't like you weren't doing like the artist project thing, you know? So I would imagine you were attracting like fans on YouTube. It's kind of like, I talk about this a lot. There's so many filmmakers I know that like began with like a YouTube audience.
Yeah.
Whereas like you were kind of the music side of that. So I'm sure like if you did those same numbers, you know, on Spotify that you were doing on YouTube, every manager in the world would have reached out. Every label in the world would have reached out. you know?
Yeah. I mean, at that point, I realized, like, later on, I mean, some labels were reaching out. I had no concept of even checking my email at 15 years old. You know, it's like, okay, like, Atlantic Records reached out. I don't know how to respond to an email. I saw it, like, a year later or whatever. I guess that passed.
Yeah, that's gone.
Yeah. So I really was just trying to, like, grow and figure it out on my own, because like you said, there wasn't a music industry audience. There wasn't really like other artists reaching out or something like, hey, like I really believe in this, like I want to help you out or something. It was just kind of like me and like my YouTube fans, you know. You know, people were always like, put a song on Spotify, you should, you know, do this. And I was like, okay, like that's the next step for me. And then luckily I had like a producer who reached out to me on like Instagram DMs, and he was like from France, and he was like my age, and he's like, hey man, like I've seen your YouTube videos, like I really like what you're doing, like can I, you know, like make beats for you and stuff. And so I started working with this producer like from France, who I've become like really good friends with at this point, but like at that time, I mean, we were texting on WhatsApp, bro, you know, like ideas and stuff. I was just like finding beats on like BeatStars and stuff, and just like singing or rapping over those, and then like sending beats to this like mixer that he knew from France, you know, like even then, even being so close to LA, like Camarillo's such its own like little bubble, you know, I wasn't like in the LA scene, and so I was literally just like doing everything from my room with like a little like Scarlett interface that my parents got me for Christmas, and like sending it over to like these dudes in France to just like turn them into real songs. And then it was kind of a perfect storm for me in the beginning, where I was doing like these videos where I was in the backseat of my car, my dad's car, and I was like doing remixes, and then I transitioned the titles because I didn't want people to just view me as like a cover artist. And so it went from like 15-year-old's remix of whatever song. It was just like a song about blank, you know, a song about drug abuse, a song about whatever. And then my video that ended up becoming like my biggest video, it was like a song for anyone struggling with depression or anxiety, Just Hold On. And I was just in the backseat of my dad's car like singing, and it did well initially, and then it like randomly had like a big surge, because it went like big on like Facebook and stuff too. And then just from not even for myself, it was just like random, you know, like all like Facebook accounts and stuff, and then that drew traction to YouTube. And I had already started making Just Hold On like my first like real song, and like I was like in the process of like making it, making that like my first like official, you know, like real release. And then that moment with like the car video happened, and so I was able to just be like, hey guys, like there's a real song coming out next week now, you know. And then and then
all that motion behind it.
And I put it out, and I mean, it didn't go like crazy viral, the song. It was just, but it found like the right audience, and I mean, to date, I think across all platforms it's still like my most streamed song, because there was just like kind of a perfect storm of things that lined up, from like me being 15, you know, like doing stuff in my dad's car, like even before that, from like this little YouTube comment in the 10 Toes thing, and it just kind of all like built up to this like perfect moment for the release of that song. And then it just found its right audience and just kept growing and growing, and I mean now it does like more streams than it did when it came out. And so that was like a long rundown that I just gave you of kind of the beginning to how it happened. Now, all to say, I started writing because I was just feeling all these like crazy emotions, and then once I realized there was an audience who wanted to hear me talk about all these like weird things that were going on in my head, I was like, all right, I guess I got to share it with them. You know?
I have a ton of thoughts to share from that. First off, I kind of feel like you're giving yourself less credit than you deserve for having the wherewithal to like acknowledge the trends that were happening and acknowledge and be conscious of what was working and what wasn't. That I remember like very clearly when I realized I wasn't doing that, because I've been making videos since I was 12. Like I'm right there with you, like on the YouTube shit. Like I've literally been making YouTube videos since I was 12. Like it started as like Minecraft videos, and then I made like fucking like Minecraft and like TF2 and like CSGO videos, and then it was like, you know, after that I started making like video essays, and then I would record videos of me at concerts, and then like, you know, and then I started Above the Bridge years and years later. But I think maybe it's just me, but I never had the wherewithal to like look at something that worked and be like, okay, well that worked better, so like I should keep doing that thing, and I shouldn't just do whatever feels right. Maybe I should like at least cater a tiny bit to like something that may have more chance of doing well, you know. And it seems like you were very, very conscious of that, like in the beginning, like even like realizing the fact that like, oh, like X is dropping an album, I should be putting this out at the exact same time that X is dropping this project. It's a very like, that concept now on the internet is very, very simple, and like everybody knows things like that, you know, like simple SEO stuff or like simple ways that the algorithm works. But like that specifically, like thinking of that in like 2015, 2016, like you really were very, very ahead of the curve, because I don't think anybody was thinking like that really back then. But it's like these are things that are so logical and they make so much sense. But like, you know, when the internet was still relatively new and there was this incredible oversaturation of social media, no one really thought about that stuff, I feel like.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I don't know what made me, you know, think about it that way. I just kind of did, and so I just kind of moved from there. But I do appreciate that.
It's kind of like marketing brain, you know. Yeah. I mean, I think there's some people who have a marketing brain and some people who don't, and it seems like your brain definitely went very quickly to like, this worked, so how can I do it again, you know? Yeah,
I definitely did do that, where it was like, okay, the formula was me in the backseat of my dad's car doing whatever, and then it was like, I knew where I wanted to go, and I knew I couldn't just immediately like switch things up from the format. And so that's, you know, I did have a plan out for like strategy of like, I'm going to title my videos this way and then do it this way and then do it this way, so that the audience transitions from this thing into what I want it to be. So I still was able to get to what I knew I wanted to do, which is like the music I'm doing now and stuff. But it definitely was like a kind of a long drawn out plan, I guess, that didn't feel extremely tedious at the moment, because I still was just like having fun with it, and like I wasn't making any money off of anything either, which was interesting. Like my brain went like,
what?
Yeah, I mean, because I was doing millions of views, but I was doing like remixes and stuff.
Oh, and it all got copyrighted.
Yeah. So like,
damn, that's crazy.
Yeah, so like some videos, like the Just Hold On video was fine, which is my most popular like YouTube video, and has like 10 million views. Luckily, I was able to make money from like that one, because I made it like an original song that was after the fact of doing the remixes.
Yeah,
and stuff.
so it was yours.
But like in the very beginning, I mean, when I was doing like the X remixes, and then I did like a Sam Smith remix and like a G-Eazy remix, and it was like all the stuff that was like popping at the time.
Labels just claimed immediately.
Oh yeah, like so fast. And even if it was like, sometimes it would be like automated, it would just automatically, and then sometimes it would just get picked up. And so like, and a lot of times, I mean, they'd get picked up within a few days. Like it would be, you know, like this was manually claimed from whatever label or something, you know, because the traction was like moving really fast, that like it made sense that they were seeing it. But that was the interesting part to me. So I was like, okay, this is being seen, but nobody's like reaching out to me.
I bet that's one of the reasons why. Like the fact that you were doing all copyrighted shit, like there's no way. What was X on Interscope or I think so.
It was on Empire.
Or Empire, that's right. Yeah, there's like no way Empire is gonna reach out and be like, yo, like we saw this dope copyrighted remix you did of our artist's song. Like we'd love to sign you. You know what I mean? Like shit like that. Like that has to have played a role in it for sure. That's like a funny thought though. But it really was such like a. I think about this a lot, bro. Like there is like, I mean, I don't know if you feel this way. You probably don't feel this way as much because you're not in LA. But in LA, like it's so easy to think of like just like music at large as like the more traditional leaning LA music industry. But it's like, bro, there are motherfuckers that are so absent from anything that has anything to do with like the traditional side of the music industry, and they just like do it. Like I had this conversation the other day about Jack Johnson. I was like, Jack Johnson is a fucking ballin'. Like he's got to be so rich, and he just lives in Hawaii and surfs with his guys and just like doesn't participate in the traditional industry really at all. He doesn't do social media. He doesn't make TikToks. He does not like. I don't know if he's signed or if he's management or anything, but I know he lives in Hawaii, like to this day. I don't think he's taking trips out to LA all the time to record fucking music videos. He just drops music. You know, he just makes music and puts it out. And that guy, I mean, granted, he's been doing it since 2001. And you know, he kind of, I guess, might have been one of the people who like, you know, before that wave existed, so he maybe didn't have to. But I think there's a lot of artists that even who began back then who have had to transition into that lane as things have gotten more and more saturated. But it's really interesting because like YouTube's a good example of that. Like there are different ways to like be a musician than like exist in the more social media driven, content driven, specific, like just original music industry.
Yeah.
You can do things like, bro, there are punk bands that have never made TikTok ever, and they're making like $1 million fucking like every year, you know? It's just like, there are other ways to exist. Like, you can be a touring musician. You can be a YouTube musician, bro. Look at Quedeca.
Yeah.
Quedeca's like a really great example of this, bro. Like, and he totally shed that mold. Like, he doesn't feel like his new album is incredible. Like, he doesn't feel like a YouTube musician at all anymore, you know?
Yeah, and it was interesting. I mean, I was watching guys like Quedeca and Aries and their transition from the YouTube scene, and it was like, okay, if they did that, I'd be able to do it too. So it's funny you mentioned Quedeca, and it's interesting. I mean, like somebody I mentioned before was like NF, who I think he fits that mold too. And I mean, that being like a 14-year-old with like anxiety and like depression and stuff, that to me, I was like, man, like this is so deep or whatever, you know, like. But so to me, even if I'm not as engaged in what he's doing right now, at that time when I first started, he was like for sure one of the big influences, and I think he's somebody who fits that mold of kind of being outside of like the like LA cool music scene or whatever, like what's in and stuff, you know, like he just does his own thing, has like his core audience, really caters to them, and he does arenas, you know, like he played the Honda Center, you know, which is like he's doing like the same capacity shows as like Kendrick, but with like way less, you know, like name recognition, but it's just, you know, like doing it's weird, you know, there's so many different ways to cultivate an audience. For
Suicide Boys,
exactly,
they literally do, like, bro, I don't know how many monthlies they have, but the average person does not know who Suicide Boys are. Like, there's no way the average person knows that group, but it's just like they have just curated this cult, bro. Like, this cult. It's crazy, bro. Like, I mean, there's all kinds of examples of this. Like all the Sesh guys, like Bones, Eddie Baker, and all of them, and all that early underground shit is very similarly, like, it doesn't exist on the internet really. Well, I mean, it does, but it's like absent from like the more traditional side of the hip hop industry, and it's just like, it's so fucking crazy, bro, that you can just exist and do that. And also though, the other way is really cool too, like doing the inverse. Do you know Haji by chance?
No, I don't.
We're having a guy on the podcast tomorrow named Haji. He's super sick, but he's a musician that I want to say the music came first. I'm not positive, but he's like a musician and a YouTuber, and he makes like video essays about like music on YouTube and stuff, and it's very interesting because he kind of did the inverse of you.
That's interesting. I know somebody who's done that. There's this dude on TikTok who he had this series where it was like rating, or he was like, if this rapper was a stock, would I invest in them or something, you know?
That's all funny.
And and you would just like listen to it and be like, you know, he had this like fake currency, you know, that he was like investing into musicians, and then now he like drops his own music and stuff, and it's actually pretty sick. So yeah, it is interesting to think about doing the inverse as well.
There's like a million different ways to go about it, bro. It's so weird that we think like this music shit is one size fits all. It's not, bro. There's a million different ways to do this. If you analyzed like the way that like the 200 most popular artists in the world became who they were, it'd be a different story almost every single time. Yeah,
I mean, I was having a conversation with my manager about this a few days ago, because I mean, within the past year, it's interesting. The strategy has shifted. Obviously, I'm like signed now, and there's like certain things that, like, you know, it's just like, this is industry standard. This is just how things are.
That's so weird because you're not an industry standard artist.
And I'm like, well, no, not necessarily. That's not how things are. And it wasn't necessarily my manager saying this, but it was just like, these are conversations that I've had, I mean, with like my label and stuff even, where it's like, all the promotion to a song is done beforehand. Like, well, no, I mean, there's a lot of artists right now who are just dropping and then promoting the song after the fact, you know, like there's so many different ways to do things. And it is interesting that, especially I feel like here in like the LA scene, it's like, and not even necessarily the LA scene, maybe it's just like a label scene, you know, where it's like, this is, you know, this is the formula because this is what has traditionally worked in the past.
Analytics have shown us this would works.
And I'm like, well, my analytics have shown that something else completely different works, you know?
Yeah. I feel like that is one of the biggest poisons that labels have infiltrated art with, is this notion that there's one way to do things and they're just wrong, like especially in like the creative divisions of a lot of labels. I think like a lot of art, bro, like I think the majors digital teams are clueless. That's how I feel. I feel like they're clueless. I feel like they might understand like specific analytical trends, and at a certain point, that has nothing to do with taste. It only has things to do with analytics, and that's a whole different conversation. At that point, you're not an A&R, you're a statistician. But
yeah.
I think it's a really, really interesting way to look at things, because like you have broken that mold, and there's like I said, like Jack Johnson has broken that mold. Like AG Club has 10,000 TikTok followers and they sell out 700 cap rooms. Like Junior Varsity, same thing. It's like there's all kinds of artists that have done it in like totally different ways, and it's just there's not one way to do things, bro. And I fucking hate when people act like there is. It's so frustrating. It's such like a I don't know, you're just lying, or you haven't come across all the different ways there are to do this shit.
Yeah, and I'm lucky to have a team that's like giving me a lot of like freedom still, and I think obviously it helps that like I'm signed like to an indie, and also that I had like some background with like growth on social media before I did any of this, and so like people are like willing to listen to me. But awesome. Yeah, it is for sure. I do agree that. I mean, I've never worked with the major before, but I know I've seen it unfold, you know. It's interesting to think that there would only be one way to do it, and maybe people are in denial that things have shifted, or maybe people just like. I think some people.
I think that's a big part of it.
I think the label construct is interesting though. In general, I think there's a lot of people who. I mean, it's just like a corporate job, you know, where it's just like,
which is
like,
crazy.
I'm just here to like check in and do whatever, you know. And so like, I could see how, you know, it's like, well, just checking off whatever boxes, you know. And there's for sure immensely talented people, and like I said, my team in particular. I mean, I love my digital marketing manager. And one of my favorite people in the entire world, and my project manager and my A&Rs are incredible, and they give me so much freedom to do what I want musically. But I think it is interesting, that like the construct as a whole for it could, luckily, like I'm saying, I have people that are like motivated and appreciate the art, but I could see in that construct of how things are set up that it could be very easy to just be like, oh well, it's just my 9 to 5, like I don't care, you know, like
which is such a weird construct, bro. And I feel like I always go in these rants and people are like, Dante hates every single indie label, or like Dante's and that's certainly not the case. I know incredible people with a variety of different labels in a variety of different situations, but I will say, to me, it really, really, really feels like there is something out of touch with storytelling. Like, it just feels like the art of like really crafting and playing this long game of trying to tell somebody's story over a really, really long period of time, because that doesn't happen in like a short period of time. It's kind of dead, and I get it, because it's not profitable. Most often it's not profitable. Artist development is not profitable. Like 9 times out of 10, if you're betting on an artist who you see incredible potential in, artist dev's it's not profitable unless you're like incredibly good at what you do. Like you have to be like the top echelon of people who are developing musicians to find a way in which you can make it profitable. Now, I think with that being said though, there is like this really, really weird descent where artist dev is like becoming more popular now, I think, because people are kind of realizing the oversaturation of stuff is just like we're more sensitive to it than ever. Like, I think there was almost like a get rich quick scheme, or that's like what it seemed like, you know, during the pandemic. I think because there were so many of these like I'm an indie musician with 90,000 followers, or like I'm an indie musician with 9,000 followers. Please push some buttons and let me know what you think. Like, there was so much of that shit that we became just so hypersensitive to it, bro. Like, scroll through your TikTok and realize how long it takes you to recognize something's an ad. It takes 0.1 second. And you're like, oh, it's an ad. I'm not watching it. You know? But yeah, it's very, very interesting. Would you think you would ever pivot a bit and do the YouTube thing again in any way, shape, or form?
Yeah, I mean, I've thought about it. I think it's interesting, even just evaluating the transitions that I've made, like musically and stuff. I was, and obviously, like my next my record that's coming out this year, it's like finished and set in stone and stuff, and so like that, you know, that's happening this year. But I have talked about, you know, potentially like next year after this, you know, full after all this music that I made within the past year that I'm super proud of, comes out, you know, like even just for myself, you know, it's been a long time, you know, like kind of just going back to my roots and really engaging with that audience again, in whatever capacity that looks like. Like I just posted a video, like I didn't post it on YouTube, but I posted a video on like Instagram where I was like in the back seat of the car again, you know, and it was like for the OGs, you know, and like people are like in the comments are like DMing me like, man, like this brought me back, you know, to and I think that's a cool feeling too. So I think nostalgia plays a strong factor as well, and I mean, it's such a strong emotion. It plays a factor in how you evaluate or feel about something as well. Yeah. And it's interesting, not saying I'm trying to like manipulate that feeling with people, of course, or something, you know, but like it's weird because I mean I'm only 22, but there's a lot of people who like grew up with my music at this point already, you know, crazy, like there's people that are like, man, like this brings me back to 2017, which obviously doesn't sound like that long ago. It's like, man, that's 7 years ago. People are like, man, like I was 12 years old watching your videos and now I'm 19, you know, like 7 years is a long time when you're going through your formative years. And so, I mean, I'd absolutely love to, you know, maybe give people a slight piece of their, you know, childhood, which sounds weird to say because I feel like I'm not even grown up yet, but like,
yeah, no, that's crazy. That's like a really weird concept too, bro. Like you're 22, right? Dude, we're like the first generation that's ever had that. Like we're the first generation that like grew up with the internet in the sense that like there are things that like were formative parts of our childhoods that like were only strictly on the internet. There's like we were the first for that. Like there hasn't been any other generation prior to us that had that experience, you know?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think about the fact that like there's YouTubers that I watched when I was like a little kid, you know, like I was big on like Madden Mobile when I was a kid, bro. And there's this guy like MMG, he was like Madden Mobile Gods, and like he was like the first YouTuber that I loved when I was in like middle school. And he's like still making videos to this day, and he's like transitioned the content. Now he's not playing Madden Mobile, he's playing regular Madden. But like I find myself like going and watching those videos and like really like appreciating them because man, like I think in the same way that people go back to music that they listened to when you know they were kids and stuff, like I find myself like, man, like it feels like this sense of peace where it's like, man, when I was like an anxious little kid, like I watched this thing and it made me, you know, kind of forget about the world, and it still kind of does that same thing for me. And so I'd love to continue to be that for people, you know, where I know my music, especially being so young, I think it was maybe harder to realize or accepted the fact at the time, but it really did move a lot of people, which was I remember I became so like numb to like those messages, because especially at like the height of like my popularity on YouTube and stuff, and like and even like when Just Hold On came out, it was like, I mean, I was getting like so many messages and stuff, just like, your music saved my life. You know, your like I was gonna hurt myself, and I heard this song, and you know, or I had like a song about drug abuse, and it was like, man, like I listened to this song, you know, like a year ago, and since then, like I've become sober, and I remember I became kind of like numb to those messages at some point, because they just like, it was just this influx, and like but now I'm like, man, like those are real people, you know. And not that I didn't view them as that initially, but it's just like it's interesting to as you get older and you like really understand, I don't know, everybody else's like day-to-day struggle, and sort of how like little things like that, you know, like a video of me in the backseat of my dad's car might have just like moved somebody, because for me, you know, like obviously I made it for myself. Like I still, I mean, to this day I write as a means of, you know, releasing whatever I'm feeling in that moment, but also to realize like this really did something for somebody else, you know. And so I don't know, I'm trying to find that healthy balance, because obviously I don't want to lose all like artistic merit, and you know, like and lose track of just like actually making the stuff that I want to make, but I still do want to give some like people something that that they want to hear, you know, to some extent as well. It's finding that balance, because I mean, that was a big part of, I mean, me in the beginning really continuing to push and stuff. Was because I mean, I told you, it was like once I realized, like, okay, I'm an artist, there's this expectation of me, you know. It's like there's this expectation that I'm going to make something that people are going to hear, and, you know, maybe just for 3 minutes of their day, you know, they can actually, like, sit in their room and watch this on their phone, me just singing in the car, and it's going to, you know, move a needle for them, you know. It's like, that's the thing that it could potentially, they can just cry for a second, you know, and, like, nobody's watching them, like, I definitely want to continue to interact with people in that way, while still obviously making stuff that I want to make.
Yeah, the internet's a fucking crazy place, and to think about, like it's so strange to try to put a face to, like, a comment, or a face to, like, a response, or, like, anything like that, bro. Because it's just like, the analogy I always use is, like, I don't know if you feel like this, but sometimes when I'm driving, I don't feel like the cars are people. I feel like they're cars.
Yeah.
You know?
It's like, oh, this traffic, man.
Yeah,
and you're
like,
a part of the traffic.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, bro, there's people in these cars. It's not like someone just put the cars here. You know, it's kind of like very similar with the internet, dude. It's like, it's almost impossible. I don't think, like, the human brain is meant to compute that. Like, I don't think the human brain is meant to compute, like, oh, this is, like, not a voice. This is not a face. It's just text on a screen. Yeah. But it's someone else, you know? And it's interesting, I think, getting older and beginning to realize that more as the internet becomes a more prevalent part of your life. At least it did for me, for sure. Because I think, like, when I was on the internet, I would say heinous things to people when I was, like, 15 years old. Like, I was like, fuck you, kill yourself. And I was like,
you were the person in my comment section.
Yeah,
kill yourself.
No, terrible shit, bro. Like, inhumane, terrible shit. And then you get older, and you're like, oh, that's a person. Or you're like, oh, like that, like some, like, you know, like, like that's a fucking human being. It's not just like, you know, Sean 064 or like whatever it is, you know. And it becomes more and more, like, strange to realize how much power your words have. And I think, I don't know, like, post-COVID especially, like, you just begin to realize, like, I think I begin to realize, it's like, damn, bro, like, our words mean a lot. Yeah. I think it's really, really silly to think that, like, our words mean nothing, or people say things like, oh, they're just words, or whatever, bro. It's like, dude, what you say is very, very, very impactful on any kind of scale, be it a negative or a positive one. It's not just words. It means a lot, you know? Yeah.
That's crazy that was you, dude.
Oh, yeah.
'Cause I remember when I was 15, I was on the opposite end of that spectrum.
I was really angry at the world. For sure, yeah.
Yeah, I remember, like I said, I mean, that Jocelyn Flores video, granted, and I've acknowledged at this point, it's not, you know, my best piece of work. You know, I was like a little 15-year-old. But there was, like, so many comments on there like that, just like, kill yourself, or like, damn, bro. Like, if you're so sad, you know, why don't you just, you know, off yourself? And it was, I remember there was one comment.
And it was for sure, like, 13-year-olds.
Yeah, and it was like, that, like, got to me. It was like, you sound like Kermit the Frog. That was one that, like, killed me. Yeah, dude. And I just remember and there was, like, all these comments, and, like, it was, like, mostly positive, but then there was mostly negative. And maybe that's part of the reason too that it overshadowed, you know, realizing, like, that these are, like, people, because I had to learn to, like, filter that out. To, like, filter out, like, that noise and be like, okay, no, like, there's an audience for this. But I think from a creator standpoint as well, filtering that out also came with just kind of, like, filtering out all the noise in general. Yeah. And, you know, kind of like, you know, like, maybe not seeing everything as, like, everybody is, like, a real person that was leaving a comment, because I had to, you know, like, try and let go of, you know, all the negative things that were being said to me as well. So it's interesting how those things go hand in hand.
This is why what I was saying about what your parents did, where they didn't give you social media, that's probably a good thing. Like, dude, because it's now I think it's a bit better, right? Because kids are growing up with it from the day they're born. So it's like, by the time they're 16, 17, they understand the implications that there is somebody at the end of the screen, right? Yeah. But it's like, for us, it was so new. Our parents couldn't, like, when we were 10, our parents didn't say, like, oh, like, be sure that you're kind on Instagram, or, like, be sure that you're not, like, being a dick on the internet, because they didn't even know what the fuck the internet.
My parents did that.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, because I mean, my parents, I mean, grew up with MySpace and with Facebook. Like, they were in that era, so like, they were like, don't be an idiot on the internet,
Yeah.
or we're gonna take your accounts away. You know, pretty much.
That's great parenting.
I think it just comes with them being younger, like I said earlier. But it is funny, like it was always like, do not post your girlfriend on here, when I was in high school or something, because it was like, if you guys break up, you're gonna be so embarrassed, and like obviously I didn't marry my first girlfriend when I was in high school, and so like I turned out to be good advice, and like to this day, I think that's contributed to a lot of the privacy that I still have on the internet, because it's interesting, I share so much in my music, but like on social media and stuff, generally I mean, I guess I have been open about a lot of things, but there's still so many parts of my life that I'm just like so private about. You know? Like I still to this day like don't post my girlfriend. And like we've been together for a long time now. But like it's just that's how like my platform has always just been like, this is the purpose of this platform. And like
it's the music.
And then like this relationship, this is something that exists like in my real life. Like this isn't for the world.
And it's so weird that now there's like a separation with that, because like you would never be like, oh, I'm not gonna bring my girlfriend to a show, like, but it's like there's just that separation now where it's like there is the online world and there is the real world, and it's like that. It's such a weird concept, bro, because you can also like, and this is like a weird thing to quantify, but everybody has like some semblance of like a brand image, even just on social media, let alone like take the music out of it, just social media. It's like even the way you cater your pages is like very, very indicative of like a certain brand or whatever, but that's not you in real life. It's not, it's such a weird concept, and you would never like not bring your girlfriend somewhere in real life because you're like, oh, like this is like I'm a musician, I'm not gonna bring my girlfriend to my show, you know what I mean?
I think it's different though, because it's
totally
like,
different.
It's like my girlfriend, obviously she was at the show in the audience, and so she's still like in the audience when I'm posting something on Instagram or whatever, and she's still like viewing it, but it's like I'm not bringing her on stage to just be like, everybody look at like this is like what we do in our we do a lot of cool stuff like but like I think I also enjoy it because there is no expectation of like we're doing this for somebody else like and at this point I don't know, like we travel a lot and I know there's a lot of people who like travel for the photos like it's like how, and like I still bring my camera with me,
I'm
because
gonna post 30 stories
like I don't like I still might be like I'm in Iceland or something, but like I'm, like I went to like Paris and like Spain like last month, but I didn't post about it at all, because I was just like, I was just enjoying my time while I was there, which I think maybe for me too, I've also just realized like it makes me a lot happier and healthier as a person in general, because I think it's very easy to kind of think like every single part of your life as a content creator has to be for the viewer, where I think from the beginning my parents were always just like, you created this platform for this reason, like there is a separation between your real life and this thing,
like Presence and John.
Exactly,
two different things. That is a really, really, really weird concept, bro. And it's strange too, because that only exists when you're making your living online or just like on the internet, or even I guess it's just like a front-facing thing, because now those two things are intertwined. You can't be a front-facing person or an entertainer and not be on social media. And I think but I will say, I think a lot of people who work in the entertainment industry will say things like, oh, like if I wasn't a musician, I wouldn't be on social media at all. And it's just like,
it's probably not true.
Yeah, it's probably not true. And I mean, even outside of that, like there's ways to get around it. Like I think I definitely scroll the TikTok a bit too much, but I think my relationship with Instagram is pretty good. And I think a lot of that is because I just post from my computer. And you can just do shit like that. And I don't know. Like I feel like I've heard the whole like, when I get rich enough, someone's gonna manage my social media and I'll have zero social media, like time and time again. It's like, but you're right, it's probably not true, but simultaneously, like that's exhausting and part of your job to like be the person on social media and then also be the person in real life that's going to sessions and going to shows, doing whatever, It's a crazy. We're literally the first first generation ever to tackle any of these things. So it's so fascinating.
It's interesting. I mean, because there's people who they don't even do this for a job, but that's still the mindset. It's just like for whoever is following them, their family and friends and stuff. It's like I'm still doing this to like the acceptance of I'm posting this. So like for these people, you know, and so it's like I'm taking this trip or doing this thing so I can just still like look cool. And I don't know, like to me, I just maybe it is because I got like so much attention when I was 15 years old. Now I just like look at things a little bit differently, like my relationship with social media. You know, I've realized like, oh, like there is a balance, you know.
Oh yeah.
Because I also just used to not do anything because I was so like locked in on like it was like
YouTube robust.
Yeah, literally. Like I mean, like I said, I isolated myself from like everybody in my life. Like I've had to like rekindle relationships, you know, from when I was like younger, because it's like when I was in high school, I just stopped talking to people once, you know, I started doing music. It was like, this is my thing. I've also realized like that's just not healthy either, you know. Like it's okay to you know, like not even it's okay, like you have to live a normal life to have things to even write about, you know, like you have to, you know, you can't just like keep going all day long and the content just starts becoming about the content. Like I'm driving myself crazy, and so I'm writing a song about me driving myself crazy, and it's this
so
big
weird.
side.
Like, I'm making music about making music. Bro, what the fuck? Like, go for a run. Like, yeah, no, that's so true, bro. It's like you have nothing to make art about if you're not living life. How do you feel about your balance with that now? Like, do you think it's in a better, well, obviously it's in a better place, but like, do you ever struggle with it still, or do you got it kind of locked down? Do you have like a schedule for creating, or you just do it whenever it makes sense?
I mean, I'm super lucky and like super privileged, I acknowledge, because I had so much success when I was younger that now I do have that flexibility to be able to like not that I can kind of just maneuver how I like want to, I guess. And so it's not like a set schedule, but it for sure is like like I know, like, okay, I gotta post a video, I gotta do this thing, I gotta go record a video so I can post it the next day or whatever. But in my like day-to-day life, it's just kind of like normal, you know, and I do still just make time to, you know, to go play basketball or do whatever things, because I've realized like those things are important as well, you know. And so it's like not treating it like a 9-to-5, but also still you know, like finding the balance in things, whether that means I'm like doing normal stuff during the day and then just like at night, you know, when everybody's asleep, you know, writing everything down or doing whatever in my, it's just kind of like working at that schedule. Because like I remember being like 15 or not, like 16, 17 even, probably even 18. I mean, there was those years in my life, like especially as a teenager, where like my parents or whatever would be like, hey, like we're gonna go do something with, you know, with the family, and I'd be like, no, like I gotta stay home, I gotta lock in and do this thing, which I think, you know, obviously is important to an extent, but it's still like finding that balance, because I literally like would not do anything, you know. Like and then like those were like the regrets that I had from like my teenage years, especially once COVID happened and then I had no like senior year of high school or anything. Like I realized like, oh man, now I don't actually have any opportunity. And my, you know, these first few years I really just kind of but I was so locked in that I didn't allow myself to like literally do anything. Now for sure I try to find that balance, you know, and do things with people that I care about, and check in on my friends, you know, and like make sure that I'm like responding to people, you know, like that was a thing too. Like I just like really, really isolated myself when I didn't need to, you know. And maybe it was a part of the cycle that I was in with the art too, though, where I felt like I had to be alone to create the art that I was creating, you know, because a lot of it was so like sad, and I felt like, have you watched Tick Tick Boom?
No.
Okay, well it's about this like director, or he like makes like a Broadway musical, and his girlfriend at the time is like, you have to, I don't remember what the exact quote is, but she's like, explaining to him like you drive yourself crazy, you know, like for the sake of the art, you know. And I remember saying that and be like, damn, you know, like that's literally me. Where, or like something would happen, you know, like a big fight, and he'd be like, oh, I got an idea from this. Yeah, I have a song idea, you know, which like generally also I don't think is a normal way to live. Like, I think it's okay to maybe to like deal with those feelings after the fact, you know, which is something I do at this point now. Where I go through it, and then after the fact, you know, it's like really decompressed, like a therapy session, you know. But I for sure was living my life like for, you know, for the plot or whatever, you know. It's like I can do this thing, you know, I'm gonna drive myself crazy so that I have something, so that I can write about me driving myself crazy, you know. It's
almost like living to write and not writing to live.
Yeah.
You know, like that's such a weird fucking concept, bro. I had a conversation about this recently. Actually, not recently, just yesterday, I guess. It was on another interview, but I was talking about how it's really weird that like I kind of did the opposite thing where like I started kind of just like when I first began doing music stuff as a career, I just had no schedule. I was like all over the place. Like, I was like, if I feel like doing it at 1 a.m, I'll do it 1 a.m. If I feel like doing it, you know, like, you know, 10 at night, I'll do it 10 at night or whatever. But, and then I got to this place where it was like, the problem wasn't that I wasn't working. The problem was actually that I was working too much.
Yeah.
And it was like, I didn't have any resemblance of like, oh, like this is time where I should chill and like relax and like be a human being.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't have any concept of that. So I feel like in the past like 2 months when I've developed the kind of like this more 9 to 5 like schedule, bro, it's been like the best thing ever for me.
Yeah.
Like it's like changed everything, bro. Like it's so funny because my whole like mentality for so long was like, I'll never work a 9 to 5. Like I need to get out of them. Like I need to get out of that system. I need to like, you know, like
escape the matrix.
Matrix. Yeah, exactly. But it was like, I've realized more so now, kind of as an adult. I was like, yeah, dude, those 9 to 5 motherfuckers kind of got something right.
Yeah, there's consistency in your life.
Yes,
you know,
exactly.
Which I think creates a higher level of sanity. You know?
Yeah.
Like there was always consistency in my life, you know, in the way that I was raised, and I recognized that from my parents. It's like, okay, like you're on a salary and you go to your job from here to here, and then after, like while your kids are at school, and then after the fact, there was time for them to, you know, actually spend time with me as a kid, you know. And so I definitely think about that as well when I think about like what is next in my life, you know, because it's like I know that eventually I do want to start a family, and it's not out of the picture for that to be 5 years from now, you know. Like I said, by the time my parents were my age, I was 3 years old already, you know. And so I've definitely thought about that as well, where it's like, okay, creating a more consistent schedule for myself, what that looks like, how I do that within the realm of music or outside of it, you know. Like just figuring out how to be a normal human, you know.
And it's all individualized. It's such like a strange career path to try to do that in. Yeah. It's like there's nothing really like it.
Yeah.
Like there aren't. I guess there are now. Honestly, I guess there's more than that. Like now than there ever really has been. Is
all the online working.
Yeah, exactly. Because you get that like in remote tech jobs and stuff like that, where it's like for the first time, like we can work wherever, whenever. Like you don't really need to go in. But it's like with that, you kind of lose that sense of community, and also just like that sense of doing something every single day. Like I really, really hate just like waking up and being like, oh, like I straight start working right now, you know, like I don't shower, I don't work out, whatever. Like that feels terrible to me. Like now that I'm in the schedule where I'm waking up, like my shit right now pretty much like I'll wake up, work out, go eat breakfast, I'll read for a little bit, and then I'll start working at 10, and then I'll work till 6. And then after work I'll go hoop, or like I'll go hang out with somebody, or I'll go dinner with a friend or whatever. But it's like having that defined period of like, these are the 8 hours that I'm grinding on. That changes everything for me, I think, too, because like when you don't have that, a lot of times you're just like floating. That would be a good word. It's like you're never having like defined, locked in, like I'm working right now.
And so it's like this weird balance of like you're kind of always working, but you're kind of always not, you know. There's this weird in between. No, I get that for sure. I think having that definitive time too, it's very intentional, like you're getting at, you know, as opposed to just like 2 hours here and there or whatever. Like that's why I kind of always like I didn't mind school. I always hated homework, you know. Whereas it was like I didn't mind like going and for 6 hours a day, whatever. Like there was focus and like doing the thing, and then it was like with the homework, it's like, wow, it's due at 11:59. I could just do it whenever, you know. And so it's kind of always floating and procrastinating at the thing. So it's like floating in your mind, creating this stress, you know, that I got to get this thing done. So you're not really chilling out if you're not getting it done, but you're also like not getting it done because you're like, I don't have to. And it's creating that stress for yourself. Probably isn't the move.
But also like whenever I get on this topic, I'm like, damn, am I really bitching about making a living off music right now? Like I should just shut up.
I say that all the time. Like we're the lucky ones, you know. Like I had a conversation with my A&R like a year ago, and he was like, we don't want you to get burnt out. That was when I was like making this record that's getting put out this year, and I was in sessions all the time. Like, we don't want you to get burnt out, you know. Like, are you good? I was like, I'm making music. Like, this isn't like, you know, like obviously there's like an emotional tool that comes with it, and I understand like where they're coming from, but like, I don't know, like I grew up in a place with like real people, you know, like you did, you know. It's like you grow up in a normal town. Like when you're in the LA scene and you're only surrounded by people doing music, it's easy to like sulk in, you know, whatever it is. But then I'm like,
I have a session today.
Like I know people who, you know, work factory jobs and, you know, are like paycheck to paycheck, you know, like, I don't know, like I said, like my parents, you know, my dad worked retail for my whole life pretty much until recently. Like he was driving an hour to go work at Foot Locker, you know, like, and then like I can't complain about having a session. You know?
I feel that, bro. My dad was a chef most of my life, and my mom has been a chef my whole life until very recently. My dad now works in like produce, and my mom, she teaches cooking classes. But very, very similar. Very like blue collar. Just I guess that's not like blue collar or whatever, but you know, very working class. Paycheck to paycheck, very middle class, whatever. But I felt very similar, and I think whenever I get in those mindsets, I just start thinking like, dude, like they have it so much fucking harder than I do, dude. Like, and they're smiling every single day. So for me to even complain about it, I one of my really close friends, the other night we were talking till like 3 a.m. about something similar, and he said something that really stuck with me. He said, like, think about how lucky we are to be born, right? Then think about how lucky you are to have a passion, right? And then think about how lucky you are to be born into a somewhat stable household, right? And then think about how lucky you are to be born in California. And then think about how lucky you are to like enjoy music. And then think about how lucky you are to be in the LA area or move to LA. And then think about how lucky you are to like have any musical success. And then think about how lucky you are to do music as a full-time job. We are the luckiest fucking people in the world, bro. And I try to remember that anytime I like bitch or I'm like, or I'm upset or I don't want to do something, and someday I'm like, dude, shut up. Like you sound so stupid right now. But I mean, not to discredit, you know, of course it's a very difficult thing, and you know, we work to be here, but we're very, very lucky for sure. Talking more, so I want to touch on this when you were telling when you were sermoning, but I didn't want to interrupt you. There was you were kind of talking about that sports culture, and that was something I related to very heavily because I also played basketball my whole childhood, and then freshman year I played, and I ended up getting cut. But that culture, bro, is so crazy, and I think it's crazy to hear you talk about it when it's in contrast to that idea of toxic masculinity that sometimes goes hand in hand with anxiety and depression, because it's like sometimes those sports environments are like way too serious for their own good. I was a bigger kid growing up, to put it lightly, and I had a coach when I was playing not AAU but CYO, which is even more ironic. Did you ever play CYO? Mm-mm. CYO is Christian Youth Organization, so it's not AAU. It's like similarly competitive, but it's through churches, and it was like, you know, I didn't even go to church, but I just played for my local church team. But anyway, so I had a coach in one of those years that he pretty. Oh wait, no, that's not true. Actually, this wasn't CYO. This was, I think, the summer program for the high school. Yeah, that's what it was. I remember now because I was on the freshman team, and there was like the JV and the varsity team there, and we were all practicing the same day, and we would all play our games in the summer league at the same gym, just at different times staggered with the day, right? There'd be like the freshman games and the JV and the varsity. And there was one time this coach in front of the entire program was like describing where we were playing this game, right? And he was like, yeah, like it's in Martinez at this one spot across the street from the McDonald's. And then he looks at me, he says, Dante, make sure you don't go before the game. And that shit was like,
that stuck with you. Yeah,
I checked out, bro. I was done. I was like, I was just kind of like, I don't deserve this. And it was crazy because like getting covered the basketball team was like a formative thing in my life. Not because it was basketball. I mean, I love basketball, but it wasn't because it was basketball. It was because it was the first time somebody had told me like, no. And it was very much,
you're not good enough.
Yeah, exactly. You're not good enough. And it was very much like an ego thing. It was like, I want to prove you wrong so bad. And I spent that whole summer, that summer Above the Bridge was born the summer after that. But that whole summer I spent, like, I literally played basketball 5 hours a day. And then, and then I literally, bro, like, it was like I was like the Karate Kid. I had to wake up at 5 a.m. I would go to the gym. And then I would bike from the gym to school, and then I would go straight to the gym after school.
Yeah.
Just shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot. And then I got cut again. Damn. And that was like gut punch.
Yeah.
It was tough, but very, very formative. But anyway, I was just saying, like I was thinking about it, like I really relate to that. And that sports culture, bro, can be very, very toxic. And it's strange sometimes because it's not that deep, you know?
Yeah. It's a game.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, that's why it's always interesting to me when I see like post-game interviews from NBA players who have reached that realization that they're like,
Steph did this for a while.
Yeah, I'm like,
or Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr had some really good stuff.
Yeah, they're like, it's a game.
Yeah.
You know? Like I know Damian Lillard has an interview where they ask him, you know, about the pressure of hitting the last second shot. He's like, pressure? You know, like, it's a game, you know, like it's not like real pressure, you know, that's good, you know, like I'm getting paid millions of dollars either way, you know. And but then there's the people online who like care about it way more, you know. It's like, if you don't win this game, I'm gonna, like, you know,
like they're more invested in it than the actual players.
It's interesting because I mean, I remember as a kid too, like it's the grind set mentality. You know. And I mean, ironically, I'm wearing a Kobe shirt who was like all about that, you know, like the Mamba mentality. And I used to go to like Kobe camp as a kid, and I remember him like being like I would think about basketball all day long. You know, I would. It was like how I'm describing this unhealthy relationship I had with music. That was like his relationship with basketball, but it was like, to him, it wasn't, I guess, an unhealthy mindset where he was like if I'm in math class, I'm thinking about, you know, like how does this relate to my game, you know, like, you know, like how do you connect those things?
It's so interesting because like when I was younger, I had a stupid unhealthy relationship with Above the Bridge. Like it was so, because I started this when I was 16, but it was so unhealthy, bro. It was like, it was all I did 24/7 365, and now I'm older and I have a better relationship with it, and I don't look back at those times as like I was grinding really hard. Like it's weird because it's almost like you're supposed to like grow out of that, but like the whole like mama mentality, like he kind of like he grew into it further.
Yeah, I guess if you love it that much, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
But I do really, really vividly remember that. And I remember my coaches growing up, like my main head coach, it was always, I mean, we were practicing like 3 times a week, 2-hour practices, and it still was like, this isn't enough. Like, you need to practice when you're at home, which I do understand, because it's like, if you do want to get to the next level, you know, but it was there was always this like pushed in your face that it was like, you're not working, but somebody else is working while you're not working, you know? And so like that just like gets instilled. And I think, I mean, a lot of that has to do maybe with just like American capitalism or deals, you know, which is like a bigger picture thing. Because it is funny, as I've traveled the world more and just like met people, and like everywhere else, people are like so much more laid back, you know, like, I don't know, like I interact with people from other cultures and stuff, and it feels like people, I don't know, like work to live and not like live to work, you know. And so I don't know if those things go hand in hand. Maybe that's you know, I'm not gonna go on a whole anti-capitalist rant right now, you know, but like it's funny, you know, how that those things definitely are pushed in your face. And it's interesting, like with the thing like basketball, where now like the best players that are emerging are like European players. Like the best player is Nikola Jokic, who like after the finals ended, it was like, I can't wait to go back home to Serbia.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like, oh, like, we won the title. Like, I don't really care, you know. Like, and it's interesting, you know. Like, I don't know, seeing the shift from, you know, like you have to give it your all to just being like,
it's a game.
Yeah.
And I think that culture, like, obviously it's an American thing for sure, but bro, it's even like worse in LA. Like it is like the LA culture to the max. My girlfriend doesn't live here, and when she came here, she said something to me. It really stuck with me. She was like, "Why does everybody talk about what they do here?" It's like, and I almost never was like, "Oh, is that?" I almost never acknowledged that being abnormal.
Yeah.
But it's just like, it's true, bro. It's some LA shit. Like, it's not like, how are you? How was your day? What do you think about this? What do you think about this? What are you doing then? Like, it's just like, what do you do for work?
Yeah.
You know? It's like, oh, it's kind of interesting, you know, to really think about it.
Yeah.
Talking more about your recent releases and putting my loss out and stuff. So a lot of the newer stuff and stuff you're working into now, it's a lot more upbeat than like a lot of the stuff you put out in the past, and it feels different. And it kind of feels like a bit of a new chapter, which is really cool and exciting. And you said you're rolling this record out. I wanted to ask, because some of the subject matter, the new stuff, it doesn't sound like as sad really, or as like, you know, it not that it's not like emotionally potent still, but it's just, it is in a different way. Writing that stuff, does the process feel different when you're writing something that isn't coming from such a like really, really, really like emotionally vulnerable space? Like, how did the writing of these new songs compare to some of the ones that you were writing in the past?
I mean, the process was completely different. I mean, from like every single part of the process is different, actually. Like I described before, I was working with like a producer from France remotely, and I was just kind of writing stuff in my room and still like recording everything in my room, doing everything myself. Yeah. But this is my first time like even working with like a producer in a session. That like I'd never done that until I started working on these songs, and I had also never worked with like a co-writer. So like on this entire record, I had like a producer that I was in the room with like from scratch for everything, and then also like somebody that I was like bouncing my ideas off of. And so I mean that process in general was so much different, and I also think it just gave me so much more freedom to make things that I've kind of always wanted and have kind of always existed in my head, but I just didn't know how to get there, because like I said, I had no background in like music production and stuff, and I've kind of always just been figuring everything out as I went. And it's like figuring out how to market while figuring out how to actually make music, you know, and it's balancing those things, where this was finally like the culmination, it feels like, of me having those resources finally now to help bring those ideas to fruition. And yeah, so like the songwriting is a lot different because there's someone I was bouncing my ideas off of. But it's interesting because a lot of the songs, like masked behind, you know, like how like up tempo they are and stuff, there is a lot of like still the like sadder lyrical content, and not necessarily sad, but just like there's still like a story being told there, which was very intentional too. I mean, with my co-writer Gianni Taylor, it was like I went into every session and just talked like we would talk now.
That's cool.
But I mean, maybe with a more intentional, like driven purpose of me telling a story, going in there knowing what I wanted to write about and saying this is a thing that happened in my life. I want to turn this experience into a song, and I would talk for 30, 45 minutes, whatever, and my producer Sweaters would just be right there strumming his guitar while we're talking, and then one of us would just kind of like spit out an idea, based on whatever I was just talking about.
Yeah. What a cool process. It's like a therapy session.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. I say I should pay Gianni a therapist rate, man, because it's like that's literally what it was, where I'm just spilling out my guts about what it is that's going on in my life, and then he's like, you deserve the truth, and I'm like, but I'm terrified of losing you, know, and we're just going back and forth about these things. And then as the song progresses, I'm like, oh, I think like there's this detail that I didn't mention that I think might fit here, and so like everything has like very, very like real connections to my life, which is interesting with all of these songs still, despite them being more upbeat and up tempo. And that was intentional too. I think a lot of the the creative process, like I said, this is me. I think I needed to make a project like this where it's different than everything I've done before for my own sanity as well. Because like I said, I've had these ideas in my head forever. But also, I think part of me too, like, needed to prove it, not just to myself, but like to the people that are listening, you know, that like, I don't know, like that I'm not so one-dimensional, you know, like I don't know, and I think that was important for me as a human, not even just the artistic stuff, which was important to me, but to just be like, I'm not a one-dimensional human being, you know, like because there's people who will like ask and be, you know, like my parents or whoever it is, or like my management, you know, people at the label who've never directly talked with me, but like are speaking to the people, and they're like, is he just sad all the time? You know, is he, you know, like, you know, because maybe that's the impression that was given from, you know, the art that I was creating. And like I said, some of that was intentional. Like I don't share all of my life with people, you know, but I think this for me was important to like shed that light on just kind of the other aspects of things that I feel. And I think a lot of the songs were intentionally curated production wise to be how I feel about some of the situations I'm talking about at this current point in my life. It's like a song like My Loss, you know, it's like it's my loss, maybe I needed you, you know, like maybe I needed you a little more than I thought, and that could have been, you know, twisted as like this sad piano ballad or something. But it's like when I think about the situation with, you know, like what that song is about, I don't view it in a sad light at this point in my life. You know, I'm not like really completely sulking in it. It's just like I've like accepted the fact of, you know, what
it is.
Yeah. And so I think for me, what this project is too, it's just it's a project of acceptance, you know, for me as well. And just like it was super healing for me to write this record. And it's funny, regardless of like how it does, I mean, this record has freaking gone triple platinum in my house already, man. My parents like, they just listen to it all day long. For them, like, and my mom texts me at least like every other couple weeks, like, this album is so good, John, like, you know, and she's like, this has helped me with so much. It's helped me heal, because like,
wow, I'm
just writing about things that have happened in my life, and thus have obviously happened in my family's life. And I think it was important for me to make something like this where talking about really real things, but not in a light of like, man, this is so depressing. It's just like, man, like, this thing happened, you know?
It's the reality.
Yeah. And it's cool for me to, you know, be able to just see that it's helped them, because that's what the creative process was for me, was like, it was healing. And I think the last year of my life has been the best year of my life, honestly, because of that, because I finally got all of these things off my chest. You know, it's funny, I was having a conversation with somebody I hadn't seen in over a year. I had only met them once before, and I met them a year later again, and we were having a conversation. He's like, man, like, you, like, your demeanor has changed, you know, in the last year from the first time that we met.
Cool.
And it's cool hearing things like that, and I do attribute it to the fact that I just needed to make something for myself that still talks about, you know, the real things that are happening in my life, but just presenting it in a different way, I guess. So to answer your question, it's a different process, but it's almost like more healing, honestly. But
it's so weird, bro, because like, when you're doing that, when you're giving people like you are giving people a part of yourself, it's very, very, very vulnerable. And I would imagine like allowing people in that way, or even giving it, there's such a vulnerability that comes with it, you know. And like, is it hard, like, when, at least when you were writing those songs, I guess you just answered that question, really, like, do you think when you wrote those songs it allowed you to get to a place where you could move on from those emotions, or did it at a certain point become hard to not seep in them since you were just writing about them so often?
I think it really much was a release thing.
Awesome.
I think that goes back to the fact that maybe it's just because writing has always been like my release form for me, like that worked when I was a kid. And, maybe because it worked as a kid, it's instilled in me that that's how it's going to work. Or I don't know if it's a chicken versus the egg thing, you know. But it definitely was super healing. And a lot of the songs now I don't know, it's interesting. I think because in the manner that I presented them in, it also like made it easier for me to digest as well and continue to listen back to them. Where some of my songs that previously that have been like really dark, like they're I think that continued like a cycle of when I would listen back to it or something, I like really felt how I felt in that dark time of my, or whenever I wrote it, you know.
Kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, exactly. Where this I think it was like intentionally curated to be presented in a way of release, and so when I listen to it, it feels like a release. And when I was making it, it felt like a release as well. Now like I said, I feel so much lighter on my feet. I just feel like genuinely a more healthy person, like because I wrote this record, honestly.
Like you lifted the weight off your back.
Yeah.
Was there ever, I think it's so cool that your parents react in that way. When and you have to share this if you don't want to, but when you were writing some of the older stuff, was that ever, for the community of people that are around you where you live, was that ever very, like, I don't want to say concerning, but just like, like what were their reactions to kind of like you writing about these very vulnerable things?
Oh, no, for sure. I remember being in my room one time, like recording a song, and I was like, one of the lyrics was like, I just feel like I'm dead or something, and my mom was like in the living room like listening to me, and she's like, Johnny, and I come out, she's like, do you really feel that way, you know, like so as you know, there was definitely those conversations happened when the music was what it was, but that was also like extremely healing for me at the time too, to get that weight off of my shoulders. It was just a different way, you know. It was a different genre of music.
I suppose it's a positive all around in that way.
Yeah.
Like it's just release, and the release sometimes, if it's not breeding like some kind of like sonic result, at least it produces some conversation in real life.
Yeah.
You know? Were there a lot of people like where you're from that were like into the music stuff up there?
It's interesting. Everybody knew. Yeah. But it was interesting. Like, it was definitely. I remember when I was in high school, I had cultivated an audience, and then like my sophomore year of high school, I had really.
How could they not know? Yeah,
so once I was, junior, senior. It would be like those first few weeks of school, like the freshmen that would come in would be like pointing or like waving and stuff, or like come up and be like, I watched your videos when I was in middle school or something, you know. Yeah. Like those conversations happen, but then it all just became like very normal. Yeah. And it's interesting. Like I did still kind of like isolate myself, but everybody knew who I was. So there was like always like weird conversations that would happen like about me, you know, like there were so many like rumors about me that like would find their way back to me and be like, okay, I guess, that, I did that thing that never happened or something, you know? But I don't know. So it was interesting in the fact that like people knew, but I wasn't really in touch with like if people like actively were like fans. I know there were people who were, because there were some people who would like, if they were too scared to like come up in class or something, they'd comment in from some anonymous account and be like, I go to school with you and I love this.
I'm in your chem class.
Name drop the teacher, something. So I actually know that I'm like, okay, who is this? But outside of that, I mean, I just have a really good support system, which is in my parents, and then in in like with the close sort of friends that I've made, and my extended family and like family friends and stuff. So those people have always been like super supportive. But it's like, it's funny because it's like supportive and maybe not like they're like a super fan sort of way. It's just supportive and oh yeah, it's John. We support what John does, and so I mean, Camerio's cool in that way though, where it's like I feel like it's easier to build a sense of community. It's weird because you would think
is
is
Camerio big?
Not really. It's like generally not much traffic. You know, it's like you get wherever you need to go in 5 minutes. Like I said, there's like 70,000 people I think who live there. A lot of like people, like old people. People go there to like start a family or retire or something. So I mean, obviously there's like a lot of other kids my age and stuff because people go there to start a family, and so there's people that you're growing up with and stuff. But I don't know. It felt like there was a community for sure. I think especially with my parents, like being who they were in the community, like being like educators. You know? Also like created that, like I always had this like army of like preschoolers that like that just rode for me, and like my parents now would like send me videos of them like playing the music at the school, and there's all these little kids, and so like my community has supported me in that way for sure. And like when I had the show in LA, there was a lot of people who came like from Camarillo, just to support. So yeah, it's interesting because it's like it feels more like people I know, rocking with me, and then there was like people who knew of me, but I like never had a conversation with them or something. I don't know.
I almost wonder if like doing the things that you did at such a young age was more like overwhelming or exciting being in a small town, like because it's hard to miss in a small town. I feel like I think shit gets around way faster. I'm from like a pretty small area, and very similarly things get around very, very, very fast. There was not one person who made music that I didn't know and where I'm from. And it was funny because like I was 15, and like I mean we had like computers for our school and stuff, and if you just go on one of those computers and you search on like famous birthdays, like people born in Camarillo, like there's not a ton of people like born in Camarillo. Like there's some actors and stuff, but like I would be like near the top of the list, and so like people in like classes would be like, dude, like you're right here on this thing, like you're one of the most famous people born in Camarillo or something, like so like like it was definitely hard to miss, because anybody who like wanted to put in the effort to find like, oh, is there someone in Camarillo who like it was like it would come up. So, and like I said, it was a lot of middle schoolers and stuff. It was funny, like I stayed in touch with like my 7th grade English teacher, because he was just cool as hell. Like we always did like a March Madness bracket, like growing up and stuff. And he was like, dude, somebody like did their project on you. Like there was like a project, like you just wrote about like they like analyzed like song lyrics or something. And I remember doing that assignment like in his class, and like analyzing Banana Pancakes by Jack Johnson. I come full circle back to Jack Johnson. That was the song that I analyzed. And he was like, like there's this whole thing about you. He had like messaged one of my parents, I think, to tell them, because he had like sent his kid to my mom's school, so that, like dude. So like it was funny, the support, especially from like the younger kids, because I think so full circle.
It's like it was probably it was difficult, I think, maybe for the people who like were in my grade or whatever to like really, really connect with it, because it's just like I just have like English class with this dude or something. But then the kids who were like a little bit younger and like looking up to me were like definitely pretty invested.
Do you want to stay there in Camarillo?
I love it, man. I think so. It's a great place, to start a family, like I said. And I mean, you listed earlier all the different variables about how lucky we are, and it's interesting, like I think about Camarillo and I'm like, man, like how lucky was I to be there? Maybe I don't want to mess things up and change the formula. I've seen so many different parts of the world at this point, which is really cool. It's interesting. I know I would if I were to live in the U.S., I would never leave California for sure. I don't think I could live in any other state. Even though it's like super hot right now and we're sweating, like this is only gonna last. Like this is only gonna last so long. Like the climate here is so much better than pretty much like anywhere else, dude.
Bro, it is like so pleasant. Like 75% of the year. Oh
yeah. Like I don't know. I was in Iceland, and it's super beautiful. I loved my time there, dude. So windy. The temperature, it was like, I mean, you're like near the Arctic Circle, so like 1 second it's sunny, the next second it's freaking windy and pouring on you and stuff. I was like, I'm never complaining about California weather again, or saying it's bipolar or something. Like people were like, oh, the weather's so bipolar. I'm like, here, not as much as other parts of the world.
It's bipolar from like a 7 to a 10. Like it's not that bipolar. Like opposed to like we barely have seasons, bro. Like LA barely has fucking seasons.
Like, that Gene Dawson song, man.
With SZA.
California, we ain't got no seasons.
Who are the other Camarillo like is there anybody else notable that's come out of there?
Jaime Jaquez Jr., who plays for the Heat.
Nice.
He graduated a year before me. We've hooped together before. I've thrown some lobs to him.
Nice.
He right now, I mean, he's I think on the practice squad for the Summer Olympics. So
Cool.
he's over in Paris right now. He's like, I'm like. People in Camarillo know of me and support me. He's like the pinnacle of like, he's like a god in Camarillo.
That's fire.
He was like top 3 rookie of the year this year. So yeah, he's for sure like the most notable person in Camarillo, because like his come up was like so public as well. I mean, sports, like, it's interesting. I mean, we're talking about the correlation between sports and music and stuff. Like, athletes are so much bigger than artists. You know, like the biggest athletes in the world, like Messi, Ronaldo, are like so much more popular than even like
Drake.
Rihanna or Drake. You know, it's crazy. And
you don't even think about.
Yeah.
You know? Well, also, like, there's just such a different level of inherent buy-in, because, like, there's, like, bro, I bet 45% of America is a sports fan.
Yeah.
Like, they watch sports. Most people, like, I would guess the majority of people listen to music passively.
Yeah, for sure.
I would say, like, maybe 20% of people listen to music, like, a lot, are, like, very specific fans, let alone the ones that are big enough fans to, like, really ride or die for an artist, or, like, you know, kind of vicariously live through them. Like, that is a very, very dedicated level of fan that I think exists almost always in sports. Like, everyone watches sports. But I also guess, like, it's like music now, and the place where, like, the personality is a thing has only really existed in America since, like, the 50s or the 60s, right? I wouldn't guess much further than that. Like, you didn't have, like, celebrity musicians in the same way you had celebrity athletes or celebrity movie stars, I feel like. You know?
That's true. Yeah, that's crazy. Jaime, it's a perfect storm, you know, of sports culture, and he was so obviously so great from a young age. Like, I remember we had like our student versus staff game when I was in middle school, and he like dunked on the principal in 8th grade. So like, you know, he like everybody like knew like, oh, like he's something special. And so Jaime, obviously, and then he went to UCLA, like stayed local, like to playing basketball. So, and his sister plays for UCLA too, so they were like in the public eye as like this amazing brother-sister duo and stuff. And then they're the Seahawks running back right now, Zach Charbonnet, also a year older than me, from Camarillo. So we all went to middle school together, which is funny. We all went to different high schools, because like Jaime went to Cam High, I went to Rancho, and then like the guy Zach Charbonnet, he went to Oaks Christian, which is in Thousand Oaks, like one city over. But yeah, there was that like period in middle school where it's funny, like all these people went to school at the same time, and it's ironic. I remember, I think about it often. I had a teacher my 6th grade year who was like, don't bank on being I've had so many students come into my classes and be like, I'm gonna be an athlete or I'm gonna be a musician, and not one of them has like had it happen, you know, like basically like saying have a fallback plan, which is valid, but it's like funny to think like she was like nobody has ever come through, and then it's like in that same, you know, within those 2 years, it's been there's been some success, I guess, in the entertainment world.
Yeah, that's you guys, bro. That's fucking awesome. The pride of Camarillo. That's full circle, bro. I think that's a really cool place to end it. What do you, if you had one message, the last thing I'll ask you, one message you could share through your music, like if you could, when everything was said and done and you were done making music, if there was one message that could be translated through your tunes, what would it be?
I feel like the one message would just be like, it's maybe it's cliche but like it's gonna be all right, you know. I think for me, like I said, I've always written as a release, and so if my music could be that for somebody else, or if somebody else can feel the way that I did when I wrote it, like that's enough for me. And so if somebody can listen to my music and be like, man, I went through this too, that's the goal, you know. So I anybody who's still watching this, you know, 2 hours into it, I mean, I don't know, hopefully through this conversation you could understand me and Dante a little bit more in our own perspective, and if you've listened to my music before, obviously you know that I've gone through some stuff, and I've discussed it a bit here. But I am in a better place now, and I think that's my goal for the viewers as well, is to know that if you've been through something similar, you've dealt with your own anxiety, you've dealt with your own depression, you've dealt with grief of a family member, you've dealt with, just a breakup or something, like it's gonna be all right, like at the end of the day, this is what we're here for, these conversations like this, and I'd also say just accept the people that you come into life with. I saw a video that was interesting recently, and I know I'm going on a small tangent now.
Go for it, you're good.
But it's interesting where it's like in the same way, like your siblings, you always hear like you didn't get to choose your siblings, you know, like that's just the person you grew up with. It's like the people, and you were talking about how lucky and you are to be where you are in this moment right now, and what the crazy chances of you even being born are, and where you're being born, and the people you're with. So the people that you're around, you happen to be on the planet with those people at the same time, so it's like learn to love those people, learn to just appreciate them, be accepting, and realize that like we're kind of all in this together, like
I think that level of acceptance and learning is huge, bro. Like learn to love everything. I say this about like a lot of things, but you only get one hometown, you only get one set of parents, you only get one set of siblings, you only get one first place you move, you only get one first car, whatever, plug in whatever you want to say, but learn to love it. Figure it out. Like, figure out the things that are beautiful about it. And if there's none, accept that you might never love it, and love the fact that you can accept that.
Yeah. Yeah. And learn that it's okay to be in a space of not knowing. You know? I think there was a lot of times where I was younger and I had maybe suicidal thoughts or whatever, and I'm at a place now where I realize, like, man, there's so much of this world that I haven't seen and that I haven't experienced.
And you haven't loved.
Yeah, that I haven't loved, that I don't even realize I'm gonna love. There's people in your life that you don't realize you're gonna meet, and might end up being your best friend or the love of your life, or somebody who breaks your heart. It's just something that you're gonna be able to feel, and it's all worth it for that reason. You know.
Make it to the other side. It's a beautiful message. Mr. Presence, thank you, brother.
Thank you, Dante. Above the bridge.
Yes, sir. Thank you for doing this. I appreciate it.
Dude, I appreciate
Project
you having me, man.
is out when? Soon, right?
October.
Yeah, pretty soon.
Yeah.
This will definitely be out before then. So tell them where they can stream the project, where they can get it, where they can follow, they can stream, they can see you live, do all the stuff.
Yeah. All the platforms. Spotify, Apple Music, SoundCloud, if you're still using that, Audio Mac, if you use that, Tidal, if you use that, whatever it may be, Pandora, for all my old heads out there, whatever it may be, man.
For Unk.
The music, a lot of music coming out. I'm super, super proud of it. Like I said, all of this was super healing for me, and I think I say a lot in there about a lot of different stuff, and so if you give the project a listen when it comes out, I think there might be something on there that you'll find relatable, or at least think it sounds good. I at least think the project sounds good at a very minimum, if you can't relate to it.
Hell yeah. Beautiful. Thank you, brother. That was a fun one.
Yeah, thank you,
I appreciate you. All right. Music matters.